My girlfriend forged my signature to co-sign a loan for her brother. I need some outside perspective here because I honestly don't know if I'm overreacting or if this is as insane as it feels. I'm 34, been with my girlfriend Alina, 31, for 2 years. She moved into my place about 15 months ago. Things have been solid. We split bills fairly, talk about the future, the whole deal. I work as an energy systems maintenance engineer here in Portland, own my house, keep my life pretty organized. Alina works in the credit department at a car dealership. On paper, we made sense. The issue has always been her younger brother Brandon, 28. This guy is a walking financial disaster. He's been unemployed more than employed since I've known Alina, filed for bankruptcy 3 years ago, has credit card debt I can't even estimate, and has had 2 cars repossessed. 2. And somehow, he still thinks he deserves a third chance at everything. Brandon's constantly hitting Alina up for money. Not small amounts either. We're talking $500 here, $800 there, just until I get back on my feet. He's borrowed her car so many times she might as well have co-signed the insurance. And about 6 months ago, he straight up asked her to co-sign a car loan for him because nobody else would touch him. I told Alina point blank, if you keep enabling him, he's going to drag you down with him. She got defensive, said I didn't understand, that Brandon wasn't like other people who screw up, he just needed real help. I dropped it because what else could I do? Here's where everything went sideways. 2 days ago, I got a call at work from Cascade Credit Union. The woman on the phone asked if I could verify some information about a co-signed auto loan for Brandon L. I told her I had no idea what she was talking about. I've never co-signed anything for anyone, let alone Alina's train wreck of a brother. She sounded confused, put me on hold, came back and said they'd email me a copy of the signed loan agreement. I was sitting there thinking it was some kind of mix-up, maybe someone with a similar name. The email came through 20 minutes later. I opened the PDF and saw my full name typed out, my address, my social security number, and a signature that was supposed to be mine. It wasn't even close, like not in the same ballpark. But it was there on an official document tying me to a $22,000 loan for a used pickup truck. I called Alina immediately. She didn't pick up. I called again. Nothing. I drove home early and she was there, sitting on the couch with her phone in her hands like she'd been waiting for this. I asked her straight, "Did you sign my name on a loan for Brandon?" She started crying before she even answered. Then she said, "He's my brother." "You would have said no, so I forged your signature. Your credit's good, one loan wouldn't hurt you." I just stared at her. I couldn't even process it at first. She kept going, saying she knew it was wrong but Brandon was desperate. The bank wouldn't approve him without a co-signer, and she couldn't do it herself because her credit was already tied up. She said she'd been planning to tell me, eventually, but the loan got approved so fast she panicked. I asked how she got my social security number. She said she'd seen it on some documents I had on my desk a few months ago and wrote it down just in case. Just in case. Like this was some kind of normal backup plan. I told her I was calling the bank back and reporting it. She begged me not to, said it would ruin Brandon, that her parents would never forgive her, that it was just a mistake and she'd fix it. I asked how the hell she planned to fix identity theft. She didn't have an answer. I called Cascade back and told them the signature wasn't mine and I wanted to file a fraud claim. The rep walked me through it and said they'd open an investigation, but I'd probably need to file a police report too. So I did. I went to the Portland Police Bureau that same night and filed a report for identity theft and fraud. Alina left the next morning. She's staying with a friend now, I think. Her parents have started calling. Her mom, Carol, left me 3 voicemails yesterday, saying I'm blowing this out of proportion, that Alina didn't mean any harm, that I'm going to destroy her life over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Her dad, Frank, called this morning and basically told me I'm ruining their family and I'd better drop the charges. I told him there are no charges to drop yet, that's up to the prosecutor, and hung up. I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. I thought I knew Alina. I thought we were building something real. And now I find out she's been capable of this the whole time, forging documents, stealing my identity, lying to my face just to bail out her brother who won't take responsibility for anything. Edit. A few people are asking if Brandon knows what Alina did. I honestly don't know. Part of me thinks he knew exactly what was happening, but I have no proof. I'm not in contact with him, and I don't plan to be. To answer another common question, yes, I'm done with the relationship. I haven't said that explicitly to Alina yet because we haven't actually talked since she left, but there's no coming back from this. I don't care how much her family begs or threatens. This isn't something you apologize your way out of. Update 1. Thanks for all the responses. A lot of you told me I did the right thing, and honestly, I needed to hear that because Alina's family has been making me feel like I'm destroying lives over nothing. It's been about a week since I filed the police report, and things have escalated. First, Cascade Credit Union completed their investigation. They sent me a formal letter confirming that the signature on the loan documents was not mine and constitutes fraud. The fraud analyst said it was one of the clearer cases she'd seen. Alina didn't even try to match my signature style. She just signed my name in her own handwriting. They've canceled the loan, flagged it as fraudulent, and removed any record from my credit report. They're also cooperating fully with the police investigation. The detective assigned to my case, Detective Chandler, called me 3 days ago. She was straightforward. This is a pretty clear-cut case of identity theft and fraud. They interviewed Alina, and she admitted everything. Alina told them she forged my signature because Brandon needed a co-signer and she didn't think it would hurt anyone. She got my SSN from tax documents I'd left on my desk back in March, copied it into her phone, and used it for the loan application. Chandler said Alina seemed to genuinely not understand the severity of what she'd done. She kept saying, "I was just trying to help my brother, and I didn't steal any money from him." The detective said she's seen this before, people who think that because they didn't directly pocket cash, it's somehow not a real crime. But it doesn't matter what she thinks. What's done is done. The DA's office is moving forward with formal charges: identity theft, fraud, and forgery. Alina could be looking at actual jail time, though first-time offenders often get suspended sentences and community service if they cooperate. Still, she'll have a criminal record. Alina's family has completely lost it once the news hit. Carol has called me probably 15 times in the past week. First came crying and begging, saying Alina made a mistake, that she's a good person, that I should think about forgiveness. When that didn't work, she switched to guilt tripping. I'm tearing their family apart. Alina's depressed and can't eat or sleep. I'm being cruel. Then she tried negotiating. She offered to make me whole financially if I dropped the case. I told her I can't drop it even if I wanted to. The state is prosecuting, not me. She didn't understand. She kept insisting I could just tell them it was a misunderstanding. The most recent call was different. She was angry, saying I was vindictive, that I never really loved Alina, that I'm getting off on watching her suffer. I told her Alina lost everything when she committed identity theft, not when I reported it. Then I hung up and blocked her number. Brandon sent me a series of unhinged texts. Started with "you're ruining my life," then escalated to threats. "You think you're safe in that house. We know where you live, and careful walking to your car. Accidents happen." I forwarded everything to Detective Chandler. She told me to block his number and said if he shows up at my house, call 911 immediately. Threatening a witness in an active criminal case is a separate crime, but Frank took it to another level. He showed up at my house on Saturday afternoon. I saw his truck pull up and immediately started recording. He pounded on my door, yelling that I needed to face him like a man. I stayed inside and kept recording. He was screaming about how I'm a vindictive piece of shit, how I'm trying to destroy their family because I'm a controlling asshole. I told him through the door he needed to leave or I'd call the police. He got louder, saying I'd better drop this or they'd find other ways to handle it. I asked if that was a threat. He said, "Take it however you want." He even tried the door handle, then walked to my side window yelling through the glass. A neighbor came out, and Frank yelled at him to mind his own business. I called 911, By the time cops showed up 8 minutes later, Frank was gone, but I had the whole thing on video. I filed a report for intimidation and threats. The officers were professional and said they'd forward everything to Chandler. She called the next day saying they'd contacted Frank and strongly advised him to stay away. He's claiming he was just expressing frustration. She warned that any further contact could result in a restraining order and charges for witness intimidation. She also suggested I get a security camera, which I'm doing this week. Meanwhile, Alina texted twice from her friend's phone. I'd blocked her. Both messages were variations of "please don't do this to me." The second said, "I know I messed up, but you're taking this too far. I could go to jail. Please just think about what you're doing." I didn't respond. She committed a felony using my personal information to prop up her brother's irresponsibility. Now she wants me to feel bad about consequences. Brandon still has the truck. Somehow his parents co-signed for him to get another one a few weeks ago. From what I've heard, he's already behind on payments. So it's not just Alina, it's the entire family. Frank and Carol just keep enabling him. I've changed all my passwords, put a freeze on my credit, and started getting new bank accounts. It's tedious but necessary. I keep finding little things. She had access to my SSN, banking info, documents on my desk. I thought I was living with someone I trusted. Turns out she saw me as a resource to exploit when her family needed it. The court date is set for about 2 months out. Alina will probably take a plea deal, but that's not my problem to worry about. I'm done. With her family, with all of it. Friends have asked if I feel bad about pressing charges. Honestly, no. I didn't press charges out of spite. She literally committed a crime. I just refused to cover for her. Edit. Several people asked if Alina lost her job yet. I don't know for sure, but someone told me the dealership let her go once the charges were filed. Working in credit with a pending fraud case probably isn't a great look. Update 2. It's been about 2 months since my last update. Alina took a plea deal. The negotiations went on for about 3 weeks. Her attorney tried to get the charges reduced to just fraud without the identity theft component, arguing Alina didn't have malicious intent. The DA wasn't having it. They had her dead to rights bank records, her confession, my police report, and forensic evidence showing she'd accessed my documents multiple times. She pled guilty to identity theft and fraud. The sentencing hearing was last week. I wasn't required to be there, but the prosecutor invited me to give a victim impact statement if I wanted. I declined. Everything I had to say was already in the reports. Alina got a suspended sentence, 24 months, meaning no jail unless she violates probation. She also got 200 hours of community service, 3 years probation, and has to pay about $4,000 in fines and restitution. The judge said it could eventually be reduced on her record, but it'll never fully disappear. She's a convicted felon now. The dealership did fire her. That happened about 3 weeks after the charges were filed. Once HR found out she was facing fraud charges and worked in their credit department, she was out the same day. They couldn't risk having someone with fraud charges handling customer financial information. She's working retail now. Someone saw her at a Target in Beaverton wearing a name tag. Far cry from what she was doing before. Her credit is destroyed too. The fraud case flagged her across all bureaus. Good luck getting approved for anything with convicted of identity theft on your record. Carol stopped calling after sentencing. I think reality finally hit that this wasn't something they could guilt trip away. Frank has stayed away from my house. I did install a Ring doorbell just in case. Brandon's a whole other story. Remember the truck his parents co-signed for? When Brandon stopped making payments, the bank came after Frank and Carol. They're now on the hook for about $18,000 because Brandon defaulted and the truck's value didn't cover the loan. That's the second truck in less than a year. Frank and Carol had to refinance their house to cover part of Brandon's debt. I almost feel bad for them, but then I remember they enabled this behavior for years and harassed me when I refused to do the same. But here's the kicker. Despite all this, Brandon's apparently doing just fine in his own mind. He got engaged about 6 months ago and the wedding is this weekend. I found out because he had the freaking nerve to send me an invitation, like he's trying to prove a point or something. The wedding's in Salem, about an hour south. Small venue near the river. Brandon's acting like he's got his life together now. I did some digging public record stuff. The truck he's driving now is financed through a predatory subprime lender at like 22% interest. According to court records, he's already 2 months behind. The lender filed a pre-repo notice 3 weeks ago. That truck is living on borrowed time. At some point you'd think he'd learn, but here we are. The wedding's this Saturday at 2 p.m. Part of me wants to forget it and move on. I've been talking to someone new, Rachel. We met at a work conference about 3 weeks ago. I wasn't planning to network or anything, but she walked up during a break and said, "You look like someone who's had a rough year." I laughed. "Is it that obvious?" She shrugged. "I'm a civil engineer. I'm good at reading structural damage." That made me actually laugh, which hadn't happened in a while. We ended up getting coffee after the conference. I told her the whole story, Alina, the forgery, the court case, all of it. When I finished, she didn't do the "I'm so sorry" routine. She just said, "So your ex committed a felony to enable her brother and her family threatened you for not covering it up, and you're wondering if you're the bad guy. When you put it that way." "There's no other way to put it," she said. "We've been texting since then, grabbed coffee twice more. Nothing serious yet, just easy. No drama. She thinks I should skip Brandon's wedding and not give him any more energy. She's probably right, but another part of me is curious. Brandon spent years failing upward because his family keeps catching him. I wonder if that's ever going to stop. At some point, reality has to catch up, right? Alina sent me a letter 2 weeks ago. Handwritten, 3 pages on lined notebook paper. The envelope just had my address, no return address. She apologized, said she's going to therapy twice a week, that she understands now how much she hurt me. She wrote about how the conviction affected her life, how she can't get a decent job. She's living with her aunt now in Gresham because she can't afford her own place. The last paragraph was about Brandon. She said she finally understands that enabling him destroyed her own life, that she should have listened to me. Brandon hasn't thanked her, hasn't apologized, barely speaks to her now. She sacrificed everything for him and he didn't care. There was this line near the end. "I destroyed my life for someone who wouldn't cross the street to help me." I read it once and threw it away. I don't need her apology. Her regret doesn't undo what she did, and her therapy doesn't erase the hours I spent fixing her mess. I'm in a better place now. My credit's been restored, I've got new accounts, everything's password protected. The whole thing cost me probably 40 hours of paperwork, but I'm fine. And honestly, I'm glad I found out who Alina really was before we got more serious. Imagine if we'd gotten married, bought a house, had kids. This could have been so much worse. The wedding's on Saturday. I'll let you know if anything interesting happens. Edit. People are asking if I'm actually going to the wedding. I haven't decided yet. Part of me thinks it's petty, but part of me is also really curious to see this train wreck up close. I'm not going to do anything, just observe. We'll see. Final update. It's been a few months since the wedding, and I figured I'd give you all the final update. So, I went to the wedding. You won't believe what happened. I know some of you told me not to, but I'd spent 2 months watching Brandon coast through life while Alina dealt with actual consequences, and I wanted to see how this played out. I drove down to Salem on Saturday morning and parked across the street with a clear view of the entrance. Wasn't planning to go inside, just wanted to watch for a bit. Guests started showing up early afternoon. Carol and Frank arrived, both putting on their best "everything's fine" act. Brandon showed up after that in his truck parked right in front like he owned the place and started working the crowd. All smiles and handshakes. You'd never guess this guy was 2 months behind on payments. The ceremony was supposed to start at 2:00, but nothing was happening. I was about to give up and leave when I saw the tow truck turn onto the street. It slowed down, turned into the parking lot, and stopped directly behind Brandon's truck. My heart started racing. The repo guy got out mid-40s, built like someone who'd done this job forever. He walked around Brandon's truck, checking the VIN, taking photos. Then he started hooking up the tow equipment. That's when people inside noticed. Brandon came sprinting out in his suit, followed by Frank and a few other guys. The bride came out in her white dress, looking horrified. Brandon was screaming that it was his wedding day, that this was illegal. The repo guy just kept working, completely unfazed. Frank tried to physically block the truck. The repo guy calmly asked him to step aside. When he didn't, he called the cops and waited. By this point, about 30 wedding guests had spilled out into the parking lot, recording on their phones. The bride was crying. Carol was yelling about ruining her son's special day. Brandon was threatening to sue everyone. And me? I was sitting in my car across the street, watching the whole thing unfold. The cops showed up about 10 minutes later. They looked at the paperwork and told Frank to move. He refused, went on a rant about the system being rigged. They told him again. He finally moved. The repo guy finished hooking up the truck and drove off. Brandon just stood there watching his truck disappear, looking like his world had collapsed. But here's what made it perfect. As the tow truck was pulling away, Alina came out of the venue. She'd been there after all, maybe hiding in back. She looked rough, tired, older somehow. She looked around the parking lot, saw the chaos, saw Brandon losing it, saw her parents trying to salvage the disaster. And then she looked across the street and saw me. We made eye contact for maybe 3 seconds. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just started my car and drove away. So here's how everything shook out. Brandon and his wife lasted about a month. She filed for divorce in early fall. Apparently she'd had no idea about the extent of his financial mess, and the repo incident at the wedding was her wake-up call. Once she started digging into his finances, she was done. Can't say I blame her. Alina moved to Eastern Oregon over the summer. She sent me a letter a few weeks ago saying she was starting over. I didn't respond. Carol and Frank are still dealing with fallout from co-signing Brandon's loans. They had to refinance their house. As for me, it took almost a full year to undo the damage. New bank accounts, credit cards, fraud alerts on everything. But it's done. I'm still seeing Rachel. Actually, we made it official about a month after the wedding. She's different from anyone I've dated before, practical, direct, doesn't do games or drama. She's a civil engineer, so she approaches problems the same way I do. Identify the issue, figure out the solution, move forward. No endless processing or emotional manipulation. A few weeks ago, we were having dinner and she asked me, "Do you ever regret how you handled the Alina situation?" I told her no. She nodded and said, "Good, because the second you start second-guessing yourself is the second people like her family win." That's Rachel. She doesn't sugarcoat things, doesn't try to fix me, doesn't think I need saving. She just shows up, says what she means, and expects the same back. After 2 years with someone who lied to my face and forged my signature, that kind of straightforward honesty feels like breathing clean air. We're taking it slow, but it's really good. Actually really good. I bought a new car a few months ago, my own name, my own credit. Small thing, but it felt significant. I haven't heard from Alina's family in months. Carol and Frank went silent after the sentencing. That chapter is closed. I used to think I'd lost something valuable, but I didn't lose anything. I just stopped carrying weight that was never mine to carry. Thanks for following along. I'm done with this story now.